Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me on a beautiful day here in Germany with the particularly stunning Lexus LFA. Now this car comes from FL Motors in Berlin. I visited recently and saw the car and instantly thought that this is just spectacular. Well today they very kindly brought it out so I can go for a drive to experience what it's all about. Now I'm going to preempt this by assuming that this car might quickly shoot very high on my dream cars list. But let's have a walk around, go through the details, and then enjoy the experience of this car's V10 and everything else it has to offer out on the road. First things first, just look at this car. It is hard to believe that the LFA is now over a decade old. It was introduced by Toyota under the Lexus brand very much as a halo product, a demonstration of what they could do, a technology tour de force, and a real true supercar as well. This is one of the 500 that were built in total that's recently arrived for sale with FL Motors, and with the sun just bouncing off the paintwork, I think the specification suits it very, very well. The bright gloss red, we've also got the satin titanium grey wheels, a design that I've always really quite liked, and the bright red calipers to contrast as well. But the LFA introduced so many technologies, a few of which we can talk about, like the engine, the sound acoustics inside, some of the other technology with the dashboard for example. But it was first introduced as a concept 15 years ago, back in 2005, before the production model arrived at the Tokyo Motor Show in October 2009. They announced they would make 500 cars, took them to the Nürburgring, did a lot of testing, and by the way, the LFA name stands for the LF series of cars, with A for Apex, very much to be driven on the track. In fact, they were so quick around the Nordschleife with times of 7 minutes and 24 seconds, they did go on to make an even more focused, more dynamic version, part of the 500, but 50 units of the LFA Nürburgring edition, which then did a time of 7 minutes and 14. I think they actually made 64 of those in total. But this car, well, let's start from the front. We've got a 4.8 litre naturally aspirated V10, which sounds heavenly to begin with. Then inside, in partnership with Yamaha, they engineered the acoustics to sound even better, and believe me, when we're out on the road this will sound mega. It's rear wheel driven, 560 horsepower, going through a 6-speed automated manual gearbox, which is a big talking point we'll get to when we're out on the roads. Also 480 newton meters of torque, and it will carry it to a top speed of 202 miles an hour, 325 kilometers an hour, doing the 0 to 100 sprint, 100 kilometers, 62 miles per hour in about 3.6 seconds if you use the launch control. Let me come round and show you the interior. We'll open it all up and go through all of the details, but inside here the spec continues with the red leather and red carpets, red grips on the steering wheel as well. But an example of how far Toyota and Lexus went with this, because of the way the engine revs up from idle to 9,000 RPM in just 0.6 of a second, they had to introduce a digital rev counter to actually move that fast. A traditional needle couldn't rev up as quickly as this car would need it to. You've got things like the touch control inside for the infotainment, which nowadays is a little bit dated, but at the time quite forward thinking. These are your seat controls. You've got a little bit of storage as well in the hatch at the back, but we need to open up the engine and have a look at this. Down here, just give a pull of the lever and come round and take a look at this. And even things like the gap you see at the front of the bonnet is actually for cooling of the engine. Open that up. How beautiful is that? Hand built by Lexus LFA Works, 560 horsepower, 480 newton meters, not necessarily the biggest numbers by modern standards, but a naturally aspirated V10, even firing order, mounted back just behind the front axle, a superb, beautiful looking engine bay as well as it happens. Let me close this delicately back down and click it into place. But design features that have carried through other Lexus models, for example in the more recent LC500 and other variants that we've seen, but very much my kind of format, my kind of style of car, this two-seat Grand Tourer but with a sporty dynamic twist. So let me climb inside quickly. The key is actually this carbon fibre unit, which is very nice. Take a seat in here quickly so I can start it. Just look at this, the way you have that horizontal dashboard, the carbon fibre that wraps around, airbag seat belts, an example of some of the technology that was introduced. Pop the key, old school style, into the slot just over to the right. Turn it on, the car has to be in neutral, and then you give a press of this button, take a listen. Perfect. The murmur of that sound it's heavenly. We're going to hear plenty more of that. I'll take you through as well the screens and how you change all of this, because obviously, as you can see, there's quite a lot going on. Your driving modes are controlled by the toggle that you have up here. But all in all, I've always been a big fan of this car. It's always been one of my favorites, and I think, well, my dream car list was always F50, Carrera GT, SLS Black Series, closely followed by LFA, and given I've bought one of those, I think this might be taking the third slot on that list. So, first time driving it since, what, about 3 years ago when I went out in a friend's car. Yeah, let's do this and see how hooked I might be. I've been taking a little bit of time to get slightly familiar with this car, because they really and truly went back to basics, to the drawing board, to completely create a unique experience. Everything is different to other cars in terms of where the controls are, in terms of just understanding what it's all about. Now at the moment I'm in the normal driving mode, but also driving in automatic, and it has to be said that the 6-speed automated manual, which is literally a manual gearbox underneath the skin with the paddle shifters, very much appreciates being driven in manual. It works much better if you start downshifting and upshifting yourself, and then just start to listen to this. Like I said, in normal mode at the moment, when we turn it up into sport, everything gets even more dynamic, the shifts are faster, it's more responsive, but you have that glorious V10 wail, even if you're just at the lower end of the rev range, and the sound that it's making is a pure symphony. It's absolutely heavenly. Now when I turn it up into sport mode, the dashboard itself illuminates in white, just letting you know that it wants to be a little bit more characterful. I think we're going to go for a short stretch on the Autobahn, find some country roads as well, just to experience an overall flavour of what this car is all about. And it's really just something very, very unique. As I said, a car that is taking me a little bit of getting used to, even things like for the tunnel just up ahead, where I'm going to pop down the window slightly just so we can hear a little bit of noise out of it. Everything, I mean, just get ready to listen to this. Drop it down to first gear. What a sound. You can drive the car in one of two ways. You can either manually fluctuate on the throttle pedal to have a smoother shift, or you can keep your foot planted where things just get slightly more aggressive. Obviously as we go out we'll be able to accelerate and experience a touch more of this sound. But even in the middle of the rev range, it just sounds heavenly. Every downshift is a glorious noise. You can never get bored of that sound. Never ever. Fortunately it becomes de-restricted down to third gear, using some of the revs. Absolutely beaming. Now we're going to take it fairly easy. This car's had a gentle life to date. It's actually still on its original tyres as well, showing that its condition is great because it's never had any track outings or anything like that. But it does mean that we need to be careful, cautious, and just take it a little bit easily. But as you drop down the gears, this is the thing, right? This kind of sound is to die for. The acoustics inside the car, so much work and time and effort went into making them perfect. And you feel that, you experience that when you're driving it. Maybe you'd like to have a 7th gear if you're used to more modern gearboxes, but this is, I have to say, much smoother than other automated manuals, like in the Aston Martins, like the 177, or for example the Ferraris, the F1 gearbox from the 599, or the Audi R8, the first generation, the R-Tronic. This is certainly smoother, but I'm just fascinated by everything. It does cylinder deactivation. It goes down to 5 cylinders in a car from 11 years ago. It has these seat belts with the airbags, which yes are a little bit fiddly to plug in, but obviously with their safety benefits that come with that. Everything about the car just thought about all of this technology way before everyone else did it. Ages before other companies had been introducing these things. The digital dashboard, we take that for granted now, but this was one of the first, and it has it for a functional reason as well, not just because it looks cool, which it certainly does, but for the fact that it needs this to handle how quickly it actually revs up the 10 cylinders of the engine. I'm just mesmerised sitting in it. Obviously you have this seating position back towards the rear axle, a long bonnet out in front of you, a very raked front windscreen that goes down towards the bonnet, I guess shortening the visual appearance of the bonnet, but keeping the seating position right back towards the axle. sitting here, it's a really cool place. You've got great visibility, you can see a lot outside. The rear wing actually comes up when you go over 80 kilometers an hour, 50 miles per hour. The wing pops up, and then when you slow down again, it will drop back down in speed. If you're wondering about the beeps, it has a warning beep at 120 kilometers per hour at the moment. But it's just a really nice thing to drive. Imagine pushing it in anger on a track, obviously, where it was built to go to the Nürburgring. This is my kind of setup. I talk about it all the time. One of my favourite cars in series production at the moment, the Ferrari 812 Superfast. My love, as you know, for my SLS Black Series and the AMG GTs. That front mid layout, rear driven, seating position towards the back, 2-seat, but with plenty of space for practicality, for taking the car on a trip, on an adventure. This isn't necessarily the biggest boot in the world, but I think this is such a special car that you probably wouldn't use it in that way to do lots of miles. We've just got a couple of thousand on the clock on this car at the moment. Yeah, it feels so good. And of course, if we put some slightly softer tyres on it, some new tyres, the ride would improve as well, as opposed to the ones that are of this age. But I'm enjoying the drive a lot, an awful lot. As we come back towards the de-restricted signs then, just to drop a few gears, and this time to accelerate, keeping my foot down on the throttle. And this is where you get the much more aggressive shifts. The proper mechanical feel of it all as well. The car's race car, because that's how this was engineered. They had concepts that they took racing at the Nürburgring as well. And of course, the lap time, 7:14 in the Nürburgring edition, is actually even now a very quick time. And these things are enhancing so fast. I'm sure if you put a modern set of tyres, this is running on Bridgestone Potenzas from back at the time, which is why we're taking it easier and not going quite so fast. But I'm sure if you stuck a new set of very sticky rubber on it, you can probably shave 10 seconds alone from the time on the Nürburgring, just with the tyre technology. That's how capable this car is. Obviously a lot of focus on the engineering in terms of the aerodynamics as well. AMG GT 4-door 63S coming past. Always very nice cars out on the Autobahns. And obviously this is capable of 200 miles an hour. This is a serious supercar, a properly fast machine. All meanwhile with that sound. And one of the fascinating things is that this was, it is slightly the sound engineered coming back in through the speakers, obviously with the work with Yamaha, but this was before that was a requirement. This was done because they figured that they could make it sound like this, because they figured that they could make it sound incredible, and they really and truly did. It's just, the shift speed is so fast, and I love how it gives you that indicator as to where exactly in the rev range you were downshifting to. Dream. It's an absolute dream, a delight to drive. And I talked about it being on the dream cars list. I remember the first time I drove an LFA, it was a long time ago, more than 6 years ago in fact, out from Lexus's base in Torrance, near Los Angeles in California. And that drive, I didn't know too much at the time, I hadn't driven many of these kind of supercars, but I knew that this was something special. And then when I drove my friends about 3 years ago, back to back with his SLS Black Series, that day almost tore me up, because I love both of them. And I pitched the SLS just above the LFA in terms of my own personal favourites and choices, and I don't think I regret that. But as I said, I've now bought an SLS which is in the Shmeemobiles, in the collection, and I tell you what, I think this is going to fill the spot that was made vacant by that car in my shortlist. Carrera GT and Ferrari F50 in reverse order above it, then this down below, just the downshift here. Sounds amazing. Other cars that would be up there for me, the Aston Martin 177, similarly with this kind of gearbox, the Mercedes CLK GTR, that's always been on my shortlist. But this is, I mean, steering feel, obviously you can't really judge at 20 kilometers per hour, but the whole package of the car, it's unique, you know, it's special. It was a halo car, it was created to be something that would stand out, and that is exactly what it does. Yeah, I would never get bored of this, never ever. Now in theory, when you're back to driving very slowly, you can pop it again back into normal. You can even go into the car's wet mode, Of course it's dry at the moment, we'll just keep it in normal. You can press on the button, that pops it into automatic, where it has a tendency to really take the highest possible gear it can. And of course the way the torque delivers and is so linear, it can literally go, well, into 6th gear I was finding at about 70 kilometers an hour, so 40 something odd miles per hour. We just crawl through a quiet, sleepy village with a car like this, and I tell you what, it's also very, very, very calm, very quiet and very gentle when you're driving it like this at super slow speeds. And even here, the ride is actually plenty gentle. It's not struggling in terms of being too rough or aggressive. And of course, that's partly due to it being created for the Nürburgring, which is such a bumpy circuit that you don't want a car with proper full GT3 levels of stiff suspension, for example. It's just a really interesting thing to drive. And also about the rear wing, it's down at the moment, but when the wing is up, you actually see under it. It doesn't obscure your vision or your view at all, just some narrow roads, but even here, not hard to position, not hard to get it through. Just hear some of those sounds, the mechanical noises, it's what it's all about. Back where we began then, and what a drive, but even here with the car idling, that sound in the background, it is the perfect pitch. But there is plenty more to show you around the inside of this. The car is heavily made from clever lightweight materials, CFRP for example, carbon fibre reinforced plastic, but inside you've got the carbon fibre trims and inlays, you've got the leather still, those seat belts we were talking about. Behind, in the centre of the parcel shelf, you have the badging, number 94 out of 500 in this case. You've got a small parcel shelf and the main luggage storage as well just behind. But look around at all of this, plenty to show you through. Everything is just really nicely made. Even the door handles, look at this, the way that works. The red leather grips on the door handle itself and also on the steering wheel with the carbon fibre top and the flat bottom, the F badge. There's a start button here on the steering wheel. You do turn it off by turning the key as opposed to pressing the button, just an engine start. And then this sound, I'm reluctant to rev it too loudly, but let's pop it into sport just so you can see what the dashboard does. Oh, listen to that. Wow, just wow is all I can say. Now, talking of the dashboard, I wanted to show you this quickly because you can move it and go through a number of different displays. You've got plenty of screens here, rev indicate, status, different menus and settings and things that you can go through left to right to adjust and move it around. Then we've got our temperatures, fuel level, oil pressures and so forth, but everything is unique. For example, the lights are controlled up here, you've got your fuel cap release and your boot release down here with your mirror controls, traction button just here. If you want to put the car into neutral, you have to, into reverse, you have to have the car in neutral and do a pull of that to pop it into reverse. We get a reversing camera. Again, not that many cars had those back at the time. Back into neutral with a double pull of the pedals, done in an unusual style just there. We've got an amazing sound system in the car. Look at all the carbon fibre. It's all very, very nice, and I like this high dashboard. It gives you that Grand Tourer feel, but everything just unique. This is not necessarily the best by modern day standards, the way you go through menu and you use this to toggle through and then you click on the side like in other Lexus models. As you can see, it's a fairly dated display now, but I guess it does the job. These are your window controls, some of your other buttons around here. These are your temperature buttons, quite hard to actually figure out what that might be, and there are some hotkeys around, of course. CD player back in the days of this, but basically it's just a really cool thing. Open the glove box, small amounts of storage in there, a few bits and pieces. Oh, there's a USB port and a 12-volt charger going on in there as well, and the alarm button. This car has the red Alcantara over the A-pillars over the roof. I actually really like the inside of this. Really like it. You need to turn the car off in neutral, because if you turn the car, let's say, off in first, like you often would in a car, you actually can't start it from first gear. You have to start it from neutral. So if I just put the key back in, I just noticed the surround here is carbon fibre as well. You can't actually start it up, won't let you start it. You have to pop the car back into neutral first, and then you can hit the button. That's just, the sound is just incredible. It's just absolutely incredible. Maybe take a quick little listen. Yeah, there is not much else that sounds as good as that does. Wow. 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 Wow, what a car. So let me step out, just take a look at this from outside for a moment. There's some more controls here. the button to release the seat to fold it forwards. If you then want to use the luggage space, you can tuck that forwards. Obviously we've got our heated seats as well, and this is your control for the base to move it forwards and backwards, and the whole unit shuffles, and this is for the backrest. So quite nicely integrated even there as well. Just all of the touches. Look, you can see the CFRP. This is actually under some protective film still to keep it from being scratched, but that's the CFRP tub, the chassis, the monocell effectively of the car. Then around towards the back, I wanted to pop open the luggage storage. We've got some bags in there, but just quickly to show you that you do have some space back here. Cover is off at the moment, but you can see you can fit some things between in the car and in the space back here. And again, carbon fibre everywhere, all of this. Drop that back down, make sure it's clicked in place. This is the wing that raises. As I said, at 50 miles an hour it comes up, sits pretty high up, but just a special old machine. Even the flicks here for airflow management, all the openings that you have around the back, packaged neatly, perfectly, fitting in technology equipment, comfort levels, but also being a very fast car. Managed to pick up a leaf, we'll get rid of that at the front. And then, like I said, just airflow that's guided around and through various different aspects. The lower splitter to keep the front end nose down, keep it planted down to the ground. Just all in all, an awesome thing, and definitely worthy of dream car shortlist for sure. Even this particular car, perhaps, who knows. For today though, I'd like to say a huge thanks to FL Motors for bringing the car out, for their patience, for the opportunity to drive it. A very special thing. I'm sure it's not going to be hanging around for all that much longer either. Wow, what a drive. So thank you very much for watching, guys. What do you think about the LFA? Should one be a future Shmeemobile? Let's see. Thanks again, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers!